Welcome to Fan4Racing Radio. We are on our live stream today, and this is for our Hot Topic Sound Off segment. And really excited to be talking about hot topics. I am Fan4Racing Radio, and I'm Fan4Racing Sharon. And joining me is Jay Huseman. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you, Sharon. I guess the first hot topic would be, where's Chris? No, the flu has traveled from California all the way to Mississippi.
Yes, we mentioned earlier on our videos for reviews tonight that Sal Segala and his wife are down with the flu. And between videos, we found out that Chris Crichton is also down with the flu. So it's just me and Jay here tonight for our Hot Topic Sound Off.
Well, hopefully while on live here, we can get some fan engagement and get some feedback from them as well, because we do have some good topics to talk about here tonight. What do you say we start with, I guess it's a carryover, as you mentioned, from last week, the penalty for driver Sammy Smith. 50 points as well as $25,000. Now, Taylor Gray also fined $5,000 for his participation. This is my understanding, his participation in the altercation outside the infield care center.
Okay, so yes, I thought that the penalty was the right thing by NASCAR, and they, to me, it was more or less a slap on the hand, but enough to let him know. I mean, 50 points is pretty significant. I think it dropped him from 6th in the points to 13th in the points. So it was a significant points penalty, $25,000 fine. And Sammy Smith, Taylor Gray, I'm not sure, 5,000 you said?
I believe that was his part in just the confrontation. I'll use the word altercation, involvement.
So both parties were penalized. Sammy Smith took the biggest hit because I think his was the most egregious, and you can kind of understand Taylor Gray being upset about it. He was pretty much on his way to winning that race and was taken out of it, more or less, when he was hit by Sammy Smith as he was charging for the lead. So I don't know. I think they did the right thing, Jay. I think the penalty fits the situation. And to me, it's a first level penalty. I think that if he were to challenge NASCAR and do this again, there would be a second level penalty, and that would be a little bit harsher. And going on to the third level penalty, even more harsh. Now, my thing, and Jay knows this, I use this all the time. First time's an accident, second time's coincidence. By the time you get caught for doing the same thing a third time, it's now become a habit and worthy of the harshest punishment at that point. So what are your thoughts, Jay?
Well, I want to start with, because we kind of differed as to whether or not a penalty was required or going to happen. And I was kind of the stance initially anyway that, the Rubbins race, and I understand it looked to be a little egregious. I certainly didn't think there should be a suspension. I said it was close enough upon further review, as they like to say in the NFL. He did come from 3 or more car lengths back as they compared it to Austin Dillon's in the Cup Series. Certainly did appear that his only breaks were the car in front of him. Now, did he take him out? No. He moved him up the track, and he certainly wasn't going to be able to recover from it. Not just a push up the track, but, slammed him pretty good. So, yes, I do. I could see it going either way. If they didn't penalize him and just warned him, I'd understand it. the fact that they did penalize him, and like I said, the more I watched that replay and thought about it, they probably did need to react in some form. Now, what you said, I think, was very appropriate. The punishment fit the crime. Like I said, I did not feel a suspension was in order because it was not a take them out, spin them, put them in the wall type move. It was to move him out of the way, but he did it rather hard. And again, Taylor Gray had no chance of even possibly recovering or stopping it. So I was okay with that. And I know a lot of fans initially, too, were saying they should have black flagged him right away, put him to the tail end. Well, the 50 points kind of essentially did that as far as points for that race, pretty much wiped out what he got in that race. And they wanted to make sure. And I know there's some that disagree with that, but by going back and looking at the data, the SMT data, I think they determined that he really didn't brake or slow down by any means until he hit Taylor Gray. So I think then the outcome, could it have been made at the track on the spot? Possibly, because again, it did very much appear to be very egregious, as you said. So the only thing I don't know if I agree with is the $5,000 fine to Taylor Gray. Now, I did not see any video of the exact altercation post or down there at the Infield Care Center. It was obviously the heat of the moment, as you said. It cost him a race. We saw that last year when he marched all the way down to Christian Eckes in the Truck Series. I don't know that there was any physical, other than maybe a couple fingers poked in the chest, but he controlled himself really well there. So again, I don't know exactly what happened outside the Infield Care Center, but NASCAR did feel that it was enough that they put $5,000 on Taylor Gray. That one, like I said, that one I'd lean more the other way. I'm not sure. Maybe he should have been fine because again, I'm sure he was livid. Not just winning a race as a rookie and locking himself in, but it's Darlington, and we talked about that throughout our three reviews. It's track too tough to tame, and he had a shot at it. So.
Well, you're talking about Martinsville, not Darlington.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. I got confused there. So then it is then, but again, any race, Martinsville, spot in the playoffs, yeah, a driver's going to be upset.
Yes, I think it's understandable that Taylor Gray was upset. He was on his way to winning that race. And the win was literally taken away from him by the actions of his fellow competitor. So I can understand him being upset. But I guess I can understand it to a certain degree. I know there's always the heat of the moment, and we've seen lots of heat of the moment situations between drivers. I, too, have not seen the altercation, so I don't know if there were punches thrown or if, I don't know exactly what happened, so it's hard to comment on that, having not seen exactly what happened. But I think from NASCAR's point of view, these are professional race car drivers, and it's possible that he crossed the line from that perspective. And therefore, NASCAR felt that maybe he needed to be fined too, or maybe, they didn't feel comfortable fining Sammy Smith without also making some kind of mention that Taylor Gray had his moment of being egregious off the track. So I think both cases were more or less a slap on the hand. You mentioned too that not tonight, but on other episodes, you mentioned that NASCAR called a meeting with the Xfinity Series drivers. It was a closed meeting, so no one else was invited, in which it was an opportunity for NASCAR to make clear their penalty and how they expected drivers to conduct themselves moving forward. And I think that also was necessary and the right thing for NASCAR to do. And I think moving forward, I thought we saw a real clean race at Darlington. from the Xfinity Series. So it seems like the message was well received. And we saw professional race car drivers on the track at Darlington.
Well, a couple of things I want to respond to there. First off, going back to that $5,000 penalty for Taylor Gray, I would have to assume, and I say assume because, again, Sharon and I, neither one of us have seen any video footage or indication of what exactly happened other than there was a situation. Generally speaking, then that is aggression, a punch thrown or something. But that is unknown by us at this time. So I would just guess based off of that, having seen different altercations they've had in the past, generally it's got to be some physicality initiated by Taylor Gray then in some form or fashion. But I kind of got to leave that one because, like you said, we haven't seen it. The drivers meeting, I'll go to that. It was to be a closed door, drivers only, mandatory. I don't know if you saw, there appears to be some leakage or word of mouth that Austin Hill spoke up on behalf of the drivers and how they should drive more appropriately. I'm just, so you're laughing. You've obviously seen some of the comments and memes on that. Oh, yeah. I found that funny that, he was the one to speak up, but that was last year and in years past.
Saw that kind of ironic.
Right. Right. And that's what I said I don't know how it got out, but it obviously got out. Now, I will say this. We haven't seen that from Austin Hill this year. So maybe he's saying, hey, I got that message last year. I don't know.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Austin Hill, we have not seen that from him more recently.
That is true.
So
that is true.
He is a good example as a driver who has been there and done that and understands what the consequences can be. And he could mentor other drivers on why that's not a good idea. So I can kind of see his point of view in saying that, but I also understand the ironicness of it and how people are responding to it.
I just want to know if his statement, and I don't know that he ever outright said it, but it was implied, if I tell you to leave me alone and you don't, ask Myatt Schneider what happened.
Exactly.
The other thing there was, and I listened to Dale Jr.'s podcast, in which case it's obviously his driver. A lot of fans and whatnot were on it, that the owners or the sponsors need to take action. And Junior said he did talk to him, but knew NASCAR was going to handle it. I think Joey Logano's interview tied into that, but that really, I'm not saying an owner can't. We've seen that in the past. Sponsors as well as owners can say, hey, I've had enough, and put a one race deal, a suspension in that case. But I think Junior is one of those. He's had some drivers in the past that he's got to kind of had to put his arm around, as they like to say, and say, hey, after NASCAR talked to him, they said, Sammy Smith acknowledged that he maybe crossed the line and would try to do better in the future and drive a little bit differently or whatever. Junior put it kind of like you said, though, of we got to wait and see. Time will tell the rest of the story.
Yes. Proof's in the pudding.
Right. There you go. And he pointed out that he said he outright asked Sammy, he said, that some fans' opinion of you is that you're a spoiled little brat who's brought family money in, and that's the reason you have a ride. He said, all you did was gave them more ammo. He said it point blank. You gave them the ammunition they wanted. So now you referenced Darlington, of that being a clean race. Well, Darlington isn't going to be where the story is told. It's going to be at a track like Bristol coming up next week. Darlington, you mess around at all, you're going to hurt yourself, as well as anybody else. So,
very true.
Not that you can't get rough, but that's a track. We talked about it, too tough to tame. You're respecting the track more than your competitors. I know Larry McReynolds likes to say it all the time. You got to race that track first, or the track will take you out. Then you worry about your competitors. If you can handle your car in the track, then you worry about your competitors.
Very well put, Larry McReynolds.
Yeah, and they always talk about that. You got to handle the track first. So we'll see how Bristol goes. And again, keep in mind, Martinsville, Bristol, short tracks lend themselves to a little bit more bumping, pushing, shoving. But even with the race on the line, coming from 3 car lengths back with no brakes, NASCAR has said, hey, that's not going to fly.
Exactly right. And so, you brought up a lot of the same points I was thinking about as you were talking. And I don't see any point in kind of repeating those. But just suffice it to say, we'll see what happens at Bristol. And I agree with Dale Jr. Now, the proof on whether or not he truly got the message is moving forward and seeing how he races against his competitors. Now, he did make an apology on screen. I think it was Jamie Little that talked to him, I think it was Jamie Little who talked to him, and he did say he did apologize and said that he was going to try to do better moving forward. So I give him kudos for that. I know it wasn't easy for him to do that, but he did. And I think you're right. I think Dale Jr. made some good points for him that, you've got to show us that you have the talent. And when you race like that, you're not demonstrating your talent, is in essence what he's saying. You're just there because you're a spoiled brat and you think everybody else should get out of your way so that you can win the race. Well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. Nobody is going to get out of your way, and you're going to pay a consequence if you get them out of your way in order for you to win a race. It's not the way to win the race.
All right. What else we got on our list here tonight?
Well, you want to go to Chase Elliott?
All right. This is one. I don't know if Sharon, I know when we talked earlier, you said you hadn't exactly heard this or look if you got a chance to look into it, but Chase Elliott made some comments to the effect that he felt that the NASCAR's throwback weekend at Darlington had run its course. I think he said they've beaten a dead horse, that it doesn't need to be done anymore. And I know several drivers, Kyle Busch being one, Brad Keselowski, came back with some comments, that it's for the fans. And as a fan in this case, I certainly do not want to see it go away. Sharon, you and I talked about this. I think even some of the radio broadcasters that were on Sirius XM throughout the day today were saying they learned some things from the different throwback schemes and the stories that get told with them. And I think it's very important when we're talking about connecting this generations of fans and the drivers they're following to the history of the sport and some of the older drivers. So I think it's important. I really do.
Well, I agree with you, Jay, and I think you brought up some excellent reasons why it's important. I look forward to the throwback weekend every year, and I do because some of those schemes are schemes that I didn't know about, and so and I noticed they did some crossover this year too, not just with previous NASCAR races, but there were some schemes that were honoring, for instance, Christopher Bell and his mentor, the person that helped him get into racing. He did a throwback scheme to him. And I know one of the cars had a sprint car scheme, and was that Chris Bell's?
I think so. Yeah, I think that it was.
It had the silver on the top of the car to make it look like the sprint wings. And so I really like that idea because I like the crossover that we saw. I like the history that we see. And, when you hear the broadcasters say that they learned some things that they didn't know, that really says something because those are people that have been in this sport their entire lives. And so for them to learn something from the throwback weekends, I think really says something. And yes, we have new fans that are coming into the sport. They don't know the history. I don't know all of the history, but I love learning and hearing about each of the throwback schemes. And when they talk about the drivers, it brings back memories. Oh yeah, I remember that car. It really is something to look forward to. Now, I'm not sure why Chase Elliott would feel that it's kind of extended its life and it's time for it to go by the wayside. I don't understand that. I wish I had more information for him as to why he feels that way. I don't know if it's the extra cost or I'm not sure what it is, but his own dad is kind of part of that history, Bill Elliott. And I really enjoyed like the Burtons doing throwback schemes to their dads, Jeff Burton and Ward Burton from Harrison Burton. I think I said Harrison Ford earlier. Harrison Burton and Jeff Burton. But yeah, I thought those were really cool to see that happen. And you got to see who the multi-generational drivers are and learn more about their dads when their dads were racing. Ryan Blaney's dad is a racer. It's not going to surprise me if, we probably already have seen some Dave Blaney throwbacks from Ryan Blaney, but it wouldn't surprise me. There's plenty that he can do there. So it gives us a chance to learn more about these past drivers or retired drivers or whatever. I love it. I love the throwback weekend. I see no reason to end it. I think it's a real tribute to the teams and drivers and the people that they're honoring with those throwback schemes.
I agree, and we'll clarify this of some of the teams, the sponsors don't want to do it, and that'll kind of tie into a fairly quick next topic, but I think there is so much creativity with it. You mentioned of Christopher Bell with a mentor, if it was from the sprint car. I think back a year or two ago, they had a Richie Evans one that goes to the modified series. I want to say Jimmy Johnson did one from the off-road truck series, the super truck. So I think there is a lot of different things for Hendrick Motorsports with what they've done with Terry Labonte's on the Kellogg's car. And I think they've done it the closest you can get without really having the same exact sponsor. You know, they tied their current sponsor into the scheme that it was back then without changing it. Some we've seen have actually returned to the old sponsor. You know, so like I said, there are some that the sponsors don't want to do it or they can't find one that will. But I think there's a lot of creativity in what they can do and how they can go about it. Hendrick Motorsports, I think, was hitting some highlight moments, you know, not just honoring that driver or that paint scheme, but it was the championship year for Terry Labonte, or it was their 100th race win. Or 200th, I think it was with Jeff Gordon in the Looney Tunes one. So again, there's so many things that it can tie in and the stories that get told. And for you and I, Sharon, like I said, we're in the middle of, we know the new drivers, you know, we cover the sport obviously, but are fans of racing now and the drivers coming up, but also from a little bit further back. And I'll just say a little bit further back and leave it at that. So I think it's a great tie-in. Like I said, I can't come up with a reason to not, aside from the financial of the sponsor, if they're not in agreement on it.
Yeah, and I can understand that and appreciate that. And I think that it's okay. I mean, if you've got a sponsor that isn't going to be happy with doing a throwback scheme for whatever reason, it's okay. Come to the track, put out your scheme, but don't discourage other people from doing it. And I love the creativity that those guys came up with. I recognized the Citgo car right away, even though it had Dext imaging on the car. I knew that was a Citgo throwback. So you can be very creative with that and still get your sponsor's name on there. But if your sponsor doesn't want to do it, I see no reason why you should. But don't discourage other people from doing it. Let it be, I guess, is the best way for me to put it that way. It's okay either way, I think, but I really love the throwbacks, and it would be heartbreaking to me personally, and I think to you too, Jay, if they were to end the throwback weekend. And it would be such a shame not to carry that generational feel for some of the newer fans, for them to miss out on learning about the previous generation of racers and cars and mentors. I never knew who Christopher Bell's mentor was.
Right.
So, that was a key learning for me. And I've been following the sport for over 20 years. So, yeah, I think that it would be a shame for us to miss out on those kind of things with the throwback weekend. And it remains something that I look forward to every year.
And that's one of the ones I know, and I want to say maybe it was Alan Cavana, I'm not sure, but one of the ones on the late shift on Sirius XM was saying they didn't know the history of the Wood brothers going to the IndyCar. That was one of the crossover ones you were talking about. So to hear that whole story, and how some fans may not even know how the Wood brothers really did in their era change pit stops. I know we've had more evolution since then, but in a gap where they went from, what did they say, like a minute 30 down to 30 seconds, that was based on the Wood brothers. And they then took that and pitted for a team in the Indianapolis 500, which won the race. And then IndyCar teams all had to start changing the way they were doing pit stops because they saw what could be done. So that's a great example of a multi-sport, multi-generational, the evolution of the sport focused on pit stops, and who innovated what. So I just, like I said, I don't see a reason not to. With that, we'll tie in real quick. It was the morning drive, Pete Pistone and Mike Bagley, and they were both pretty harsh on the TV broadcasters. You kind of hit on this of knowing some sponsors don't or aren't going to, for whatever reason, participate. Don't focus on that. And these guys, like I said, these guys were pretty harsh on the TV guys for putting up a list, and I don't know if I missed it, of they actually had a list of teams that didn't participate, and they were kind of shaming them or calling them out. And I know I'm guilty of this in life, but try to celebrate the positive and the good things, not focus on the negative. And there was plenty. You and I were talking about this. I mean, the Xfinity Series this year, I thought was more than we've seen in the past, and had some great ones. Some of them due to, I'm sure, when you think about it, the Burton ones are because they're your favorites to you. But just in general, I thought they had some great ones there in the Xfinity Series.
Absolutely. And I love that we saw more of the cars participating in the Xfinity Series. There's been some years when there's been hardly any in the other series. So I was really happy to see the Xfinity Series going full force this year. But I agree with you with regard to the broadcasters. I wish they hadn't done that. And or at least if they do that, make comment that it's nothing to be shamed about or disappointed about. There are reasons for why they're not participating. Sponsorship is one of those reasons. Maybe their sponsors don't want to participate because they lose that visibility for that race at Darlington.
Right.
But I just wish they hadn't done that, or at least given more explanation so that they don't feel shamed about not participating. I don't think that's necessary. I think that the sponsors have a right to feel the way that they feel. And on the other side of it, I understand why they feel the way they feel. But on the other side of it, I do feel that there were some real creative schemes there. And I gave you some examples. The Citgo car didn't have Citgo on there, but they had Dex Imaging, their current sponsor. They didn't lose their visibility. But I thought they were very creative in the way that they did that. And they weren't the only ones. There were a lot of them that had their own sponsor, their current sponsor on a paint scheme of someone else. And I think you mentioned the number 5 car. You know, you knew if you've watched the sport for a while like we have, you knew who drove that car, you knew who that sponsor was, but it was okay to see the current sponsor on there too, and to see them kind of highlight their current sponsor on that throwback scheme. So I don't see any problem on either side of that. I just wish the broadcasters had not been so harsh on those that didn't participate. I don't think it's necessary.
Right. I agree with that. It's uncalled for from that aspect of, or like you said, if there is a reason, give that explanation or show some defense to as to why a sponsor might not have chosen to.
Exactly right. Anything more there?
No.
Now I need you to explain this conspiracy theory, because I've heard a couple different versions, and I don't know if it was at the beginning or the end of the race. So,
all right. So first, I hate to even be a part of this because I'm not a big fan of it, but it's always out there. So Kyle Larson spun out lap 3 or 4, went to the garage, didn't come back out, only completed 122 laps. So from the conspiracy side, the restart that brought out the green-white checkered was Bubba Wallace ran into Kyle Larson, brought out the caution, and that's why they had the green-white checkered restart. Oh, okay. So the first question was did Bubba Wallace spin him out? And they showed that Kyle Larson had checked up, slowed down going into the corner. Bubba just closed in, got into him. Wasn't an intentional thing. But the conspiracy was 2311, Bubba Wallace helping driver or team owner Denny Hamlin get the win. And they referenced back to one, I want to say it was COTA last year too, where I think it was Bubba Wallace and Austin Dillon that got in a wreck and spun, and that was an advantage to Denny Hamlin. Mm-hmm. I'm not buying it. Like I said, I don't get into the conspiracy theories, but they want to make a thing out of it, and I get frustrated. You know that, Sharon.
Now, if that's the incident, which I thought it might be, I think that there's enough data out there that disputes it. So the data just doesn't support the conspiracy theory. It was Kyle Larson who checked up. And as we all know, when a driver checks up, sometimes you don't, the visibility in those cars are not what you think it is. And sometimes things happen so quickly, there is no reaction time. And so Bubba didn't have the reaction time to be able to slow up his car. And naturally, he bumped into it. Kyle Larson, by the way, checked up to avoid an accident with Tyler Reddick. He did not want to hit Tyler Reddick, so he checked up. Now, Bubba Wallace can't see necessarily what's happening in front of Kyle Larson, and so he had no reaction time to slow up. He was close enough. There was no reaction time for him to get slowed up in time. So the data just doesn't support the conspiracy theory. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. So it's a not conspiracy theory.
Right. There you go. I think it was Dave Moody tweeted out, he said, if you're willing to believe in this conspiracy theory, despite seeing 100% data, facts and data contrary to it, that's your right, but you're in the wrong. I mean, second off, even if that were the case of, say the white flag had come out and Denny Hamlin was in the lead and the caution comes out, that gives him the race. At that point, Ryan Blaney had taken the lead. There's so many things that could happen that even attempting that, you're not guaranteeing any outcome because it is a complete restart. Teams may pit, they may not. There's so much that it wouldn't even be a feasible plan if that were the case. So I don't understand why fans engage in this. And I'm going to have to stop because Sharon, you and I have talked offline. I get, there's certain social media areas I stay off of just because I'm like, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Exactly. I don't have anything better to do, but I'm going to go do that anyway rather than engage in this type of conversation.
Well, let me just say this. It goes back to my 1, 2, 3. First time's an accident, second time's coincidence, third time's a habit. And unfortunately, there are some fans that are in the habit of coming up with conspiracy theories, and they can't help themselves.
Right.
They surround themselves with other people that buy into this stuff, and it just feeds on itself, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And I was told a long time ago, you surround yourself with positive people and positive things will happen. You surround yourself with negative people and negative things are negativity feeds on negativity, positivity feeds on positivity. And unfortunately, there's a group of fans that are feeding on negativity, and it's their life. It's the way they live their life. And so they're not going to stop. It's a fact of life. And you just have to be smart enough to look at the facts and base your thought process on what are the facts of the situation. And it happens so often, even in news stories. Sometimes I have to catch myself because sometimes things will break and people they think that they want to be the first ones out there with a news story. And sometimes they don't have all the facts. So a lot of times I catch myself and say, wait until all of the facts are out on this, because right now I see a lot of people basing it on suspicions, or not. That sounds nefarious. They're basing it on just a few facts. They don't have all the facts, and they're basing it on what they think they have, and they don't know the whole story yet. So it's better to wait and let the story present itself with the facts, and then make your judgments on what's going on. And we all get caught up in that at some point, but some of us are smart enough to sit back and wait.
Well, I'm going to stay on the side of positivity and not negativity, and move on to the next topic, because I can get very negative when it comes to that, because it does frustrate me. So there is still a
negative when I say smart enough to sit back and wait. It's
no, just, I mean, you're 100% right.
It's just why I don't know how to say it without saying something like that. So it's just better to sit back and wait than jump to conclusions.
There is another tie into that. It relates to the damaged vehicle policy. Now, you said Kyle Larson, the reason he checked up was to avoid running into Tyler Reddick, and I had not heard that. Yes. So there again, there was talk of whether or not Kyle Larson's car was 100%, why he was out there. He shouldn't have been out there racing. He had gained 1 spot, 1 point by passing J.J. Yaley, who was out of the race.
1 point.
1 point. Yeah, he got 1 point, 1 additional point. So whether or not that was a case of the car had an issue and that thus shouldn't have been out here and caused a problem. The point brought up was, if that was what you believed and you didn't feel Larson should be out there, if we look back to last year, the fans basically drove NASCAR into changing the damaged vehicle policy based off of
to be out there.
Yeah, you got what you wanted. And there again, that kind of goes to the morning show. They're saying fans are fickle and don't know what they want. They get what they want and then they don't like it, but honestly, I did not see or hear anything where that was the reason given as to why he checked up
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, it
Okay.
was a statement from not Kyle Larson.
Okay. Well, and that makes me feel even better. I will say this, because again, it's not like the car fell apart or parts were falling off the car, which is what brought out the caution. And I understand NASCAR's view on that, of that's why they implemented the DVP. However, in this case, he came back out and everybody's saying, okay, well, he got that one spot. Why stay out there? There's a list of reasons as to why that would be. You get whatever points you can. There's going to be times where the car is not perfect and you have to manhandle it. Kyle Larson got to practice that. The crew, which was a new crew coming over from Justin Haley's, I believe, working with Larson, they got to implement procedures of, hey, we got to do something on this spot. Maybe they put a different setup or things on the car to try and work of, we come back there in the fall, in the playoffs. I mean, there is a lot of reasons to be out there on that. Your fans want to see it. Somebody at the track said when Larson came back out, even 200 and some laps down, the fans are cheering for him. They paid to see him on the track, So, yeah, I got no problem with him being back out on the track.
Yeah, and obviously NASCAR didn't have a problem either. There is a minimum speed requirement. If they cannot meet that minimum speed requirement, then NASCAR will black flag them and they'll have to get off of the track. He was meeting that minimum speed requirement. And you're right about the fans. They wanted NASCAR to revise the damaged vehicle policy. They did that. And here's the thing with fans. Fans don't always think about the unintended consequence of what they're asking for. So, and again, I guess it depends on who you're a fan of how you perceive that to be. We've talked about it so many times, what a difference 1 point can be for a driver. Whether it be they're in a tie and that 1 point would have put them 1 point ahead of that other person, whether, so you said it earlier in one of our videos, ask Carl Edwards what a difference 1 point can be. It meant the difference between winning a championship and being tied and not having the advantage in the tie. So that 1 point can make a huge, huge difference. And that's why Kyle Larson is out there. His sponsors are expecting that. His team owner is expecting that because that 1 point makes a difference to them as well. So drivers are expected to give everything they've got to go after every point they can get. And that's what Kyle Larson was doing. And yes, drivers that know how to manhandle their cars, even when their car is not at its best, gain an advantage by being out there. And one of the best at it, and I'm going to brag on somebody right now, is Martin Truex Jr. He could take a car that was not at its best and manhandle that car to a good finish at the end of the race. And sometimes we saw it go the other way too. But a lot of times he got the better finish, better than what that car was capable of. So, and there's a lot of drivers like that. So I don't blame Kyle Larson from being out there. I think fans, again, don't have all the facts, don't have all of the perspectives. When Kyle Larson says that he slowed down and that's why Bubba Wallace bumped into him, that happens a lot in racing. And sometimes it happens so quickly, spotter doesn't have a chance to get the word to the driver, Bubba Wallace in this case, to slow up. And so it looks like Bubba hit him when in fact Kyle Larson slowed down. So it's a misperception on the part of fans, and it's understandable. But again, wait until all the facts come out.
I was going to say, it's not very often, and you got to understand things to follow what you said there of the driver in front backed into the guy behind him, but I mean, that's essentially kind of what happened.
Exactly what happened. Exactly.
Listening to Pete Pistone and Mike Bagley this morning, I can't say it was what Hendrick Motorsports and the 5 team were doing, but we've heard it. Teams don't get practice sessions. Well, Kyle Larson and that team got 122 laps of practice that they weren't going to get otherwise. So, I mean, that in and of itself, we hear that all the time. Track time is so valuable. Again, whatever you can learn, you learn.
Exactly right. Okay, so let's see what else is on our list. Okay, here's one. Denny Hamlin went back to back this week. He won at Martinsville. He won at Darlington. We've got Bristol coming up. He only has 4 more wins to go to hit 60 wins on his resume. Will he do it this season, Jay?
Well, the one thing when I looked at that and I said this in one of the videos earlier too, I said I was happy to see him win at Martinsville. I'm not a big fan of his. I'm not a hater per se, but he's not one of my top 5-10 drivers for sure. But I did like seeing him win because, again, I love the competition. He is one of the top drivers in the sport. You cannot deny that. So to see him win is good for the sport of NASCAR, which I'm a fan of. Did I want to see him go back to back? Not so much. But again, he's a talented driver. The thing that kind of scares me is Bristol is a good track for him. We could see a second Joe Gibbs Racing driver make it 3 in a row. So that, and again, if he does, I will applaud him because that takes talent. I don't care whether it's your favorite driver or not. The talent is there. So would you say 4 more? Certainly capable of it. I will say that. Especially if they get right now, again, this stretch of tracks they said is real good for Denny Hamlin. I'm trying to, off the top of my head, I can't think of what comes after Bristol, but right now, and anybody can win. Okay, yeah. So can he possibly? Yes. Had the beginning of the season, what I said, would he get the 5 in this year? That seems a lot based on their past couple of years. And he just, with that win at Martinsville, he had broke a 30-some race winless streak. So I would have said no. Right now, when you look at it, knowing what Christopher Bell did with the JGR team, knowing that Bristol is a possibility, he could get that next one next week. You got to kind of say, yeah, it's certainly a very good possibility. Gonna have to wait and see if this really is a continuation. We talked about it. William Byron had the best car there, Darlington. Ryan Blaney is the one that made the pass, lost the race on pit road, but Denny Hamlin is still a top contender and in position. His pit crew got him out first, and he took it from there. So, yeah, if he's in the top 5 at Bristol, something happens. He can get the win. To mention Talladega, you can be 30th and actually come out with the win if things go right. So, it's certainly possible.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth again, Jay. In order to be a top contending team, you got to have a good pit crew, and you got to be a good driver. You got to have a good spotter. It's more than just the driver. It's the all-round package. And right now, that's what Denny Hamlin has. That's what Ryan Blaney doesn't have, but it is what Denny Hamlin has. And that could take him a long way if they can keep it up. Sometimes what happens is you get a driver that gets all these wins early in the year, and they peak early in the year, and it's hard, very hard to sustain that for an entire season and then into the playoffs. So if the pit crew can sustain it, if Denny Hamlin can continue, then he's got a good chance at making it happen. Even if it was 2 more now and then 2 more later in the chase, he's got to be able to sustain it, though, for an entire season and through the playoffs. And that is a huge task. Is he capable of doing that? Like you said, absolutely capable of doing that. And he's not in my top 5 drivers either. But you cannot deny Denny Hamlin the stats that he has And this weekend was an example of just how they are hitting on all 4 cylinders, or all 8 cylinders, or however many cylinders they have. They're hitting all of them. So they've got to have the all-round package, and they have that right now. The question really is, can they sustain it and continue to win, not just through the regular season, but through the playoffs as well. And I think they're capable of it.
And that goes to the history of Denny Hamlin. The one key thing I look at here is, again, there was the crew chief change, and I heard some more on that recently. Chris Gabehart moving into a leadership of overall all 4 teams at Joe Gibbs Racing, competition director, I believe, but I might be mistaken on that. Again, I don't know the titles when it comes to that, but okay. But yeah, it has more responsibility to all 4 teams, not the specific crew chief of the one. And Chris Gale and Denny Hamlin being able to gel so quickly. Even Denny Hamlin said that of how quickly they were able to come together and get that first win there at Martinsville. And that one again was done in a, what's that?
And that can make a big difference, your crew chief.
Well, without a doubt. And this is where I said there was more came to light on that apparently there was some, I'm trying to think if animosity was the right word, but a falling out between Gabehart and Denny Hamlin. I hadn't heard that before, but there was apparently some tension, or just the partnership had run its course, as they like to say. The one thing, and I know he just broke the tie with Rusty Wallace, and I believe that was for 11th all time on the list. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember from our preview. Okay. So again, you can't deny the talent that's there.
Absolutely. And it's not going to surprise me if he does get 4 more wins this season. And we'll see. As they say, proof's in the pudding. So we'll see what happens. The other thing, and I have not realized this, I found this while I was looking at Adam Stern's timeline. There is another lawsuit out there. Did you know about that, Jay?
I did see that. It wasn't one that I felt was high on my list of, but it is an issue. Yeah, I saw it early in the week. It is, what is it? Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing, the RWR team, supposedly backing out of a third charter sale. That there was an agreement that RWR would sell a third charter to Legacy Motor Club. That's the first I'd heard of that even being an intended thing. I had not heard that they were looking to go to a third team. So that's what caught me off guard when this came out. However, we've been talking about it. Right now it's going to be 1, 2, 3, a part-time ride of, and I'm trying to think who put the car out for Martin Truex Jr.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Daytona.
Oh.
Because with 2311 now having 3 teams, which is the limit, they can't provide it. It was Tricon Garage.
Right.
And Corey Haim has some races scheduled. They said under 2311, but again, I think it has to be listed under Tricon Garage if they have their 3, although they might be able to do a part-time 4th car. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But we know Corey Haim has signed a developmental deal with 2311. With that, we've talked about of why he didn't move to the Xfinity or when he's going to move to Cup. Legacy Motor Club is another Toyota team. Now, whether they get, say, Riley Herbst or Bubba Wallace and Corey Haim goes into 2311 or not, I think that's what's coming into play here and why that's becoming a big issue to get that third charter.
Oh, you bring up some interesting points
here. That's speculation. I don't run with that and make it facts. That's speculation.
Okay. All speculation. Okay. Yeah, I was not aware of this until I guess I've been super busy this past week. And so there's a lot that I've missed, and I apologize for that. But yeah, I just saw this for the first time today, and you're right. It has to do with the third charter. Legacy Motor Club was expecting that Ware Racing was going to lose their charter because of performance. NASCAR has the right to take a charter away from a team if they are not performing up to standard. What that standard is, I'm not 100% sure, but NASCAR decided to allow Ware Racing to keep their charter. Now, as a result, anything that went on, maybe Ware Racing was also thinking that they were going to lose the charter, engaged in a conversation with Legacy Motor Club with the possibility of them buying that charter and kind of avoiding being let go, if you will, from NASCAR for non-performance. So I can see where this can get a little bit sticky. And so Legacy Motor Club has put out this lawsuit saying, you told us you were going to give us that charter. Even though NASCAR allowed you to keep it, that doesn't negate the fact that we were expecting to get that charter. Once NASCAR allowed you to keep it, you reneged on your agreement with us, and therefore that's why we're presenting this lawsuit. So it's a sticky situation. And I can see where it's going to have to come down to somebody a lot smarter than me deciding on how this ends up. But I can see both sides of it.
I'm going to go back and say that NASCAR should have listened to me to begin with. I wasn't a fan of this charter system to begin with. I understand what the intent was, giving value, and Chip Ganassi is a great example of that. Wanted to get out of the sport, and in the past of when you did, you were taking a beating already. You take a beating in racing as it is anyway, spending money to race, but especially when you do decide to get out of the race, even back before this next gen car, you were selling your cars for 8 cents on the dollar is I think about what they said you get. It was evolving so fast. Of the cars were just basically outdated. So yeah, you weren't getting a whole lot of value out of it. I understand the charters were designed to provide value, but this is a case of I didn't necessarily see this coming, but this type of thing is what you see run into. I think it has prevented new teams from coming in on their own. They aren't going to come in unless they can get a charter, and some of the charters were costing $40 million. So this one is specifically, as I see it, NASCAR's own fault. They have the rule in place of we can take the charter from you for non-performance, and it was at one time, I don't know if it still is, of finishing in the last 3 spots for 3 consecutive years.
Yes.
But then you got into, well, you can lease the charter for a year. You lease it to a top contending team. They run it up in points. Now you're not in the bottom 3 for 3 years. Then you get it back. Even if it was in the bottom 3, you get it back. You move that charter to a different team within your organization. So it's not the same team per se. There was just a lot of manipulation that went around that, and it made what I think was a bad thing to begin with even worse. They dug the hole even deeper with that. NASCAR has yet to enforce that. That's one of those, I think, until that happens, these types of things are going to keep happening because they can get away with it. Just like the pushing on the track, the whatever else, until NASCAR says, bam, don't do it no more, they're going to keep pushing that envelope. So, I admitted this. This was one I didn't know that was official. I knew there had been talk about it, and I guess it did go into effect. You cannot have more than 3 teams. The exception is the 2 teams, Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports, that already had 4. They were grandfathered in. They don't have to sell one off. But that's kind of why, too, everybody is trying to max out right now. Roush Fenway Keselowski wanted to make sure they got one of Stuart Haas Racing's, getting a 3rd one, as did 2311. And now, again, Legacy, and I think Toyota as a whole was looking to firm up. Again, they only have the 3 teams as it is, so they want to max out with that.
Yes. And unfortunately, I think all of this is a bad look for our sport. I love NASCAR. I love being a fan of NASCAR, but I just don't think this is a good look for our sport. And unfortunately, you're right. All the things you said are absolutely right. Having the charter system is where this is coming from. Initially, unintended consequences. I go back to that. You think you're doing a good thing for the sport, and so you allow the charter systems to come in to give value to the teams. And now we've got lawsuits coming in a couple of different directions, and who knows how many more down the road. NASCAR's already said that they are reevaluating the whole charter system and where they want to go from here. This just gives them another reason to abandon the whole charter system. But I think there's going to be problems with that now, too. If NASCAR takes away the charter system, they're going to open themselves up to more, I think. So it's a really sticky situation that the charter systems have brought us to. But again, NASCAR, as the sanctioning body, needs to really take a look at it and see how they can avoid some of these things from happening. And I see, at the very minimum, we're going to see changes to the charter system coming forth with the conclusion of these lawsuits, depending on how they play out. But nobody wants to see a lawsuit, but people don't want to make an agreement with somebody and have it be reneged on either. And I can see that too. So it's just a slippery slope that we're on right now. And NASCAR is continually evolving. We'll see where this takes us. But I do see there'll be more evolving that's going to take place over the next year or two.
And I will say this, like I said, I understood the intent of giving value to the teams that were there every week. Having run a street stock series on the local dirt tracks, we did come up with something to that effect. One of the things that we looked at, and I know NASCAR had a rule for that, of if you only showed up to 5 races a year and you win a race, you're not eligible for the playoffs. You have to be at every race. So we had something that we did essentially effective with that. The first year we did the series, we had 8 races. One driver showed up 4 times, won those 4 races. So obviously was in contention for the championship, having only run half of the races. So we did do a points modification of what we called bonus points or show up points. Mm-hmm. If you showed up for all 10, you got 100 bonus points. So if somebody only showed up for 4, even if they won them and got those points, they were still being equaled out by the drivers that were showing up to every week or every race. Mm-hmm. So I understand that, and that's where the money that goes with it to the charter teams, a lot of that revolves around that, how much more money the charter teams get. I still think you can find a way to identify teams that show up every week and you give them extra money. And I can't say I've pitched this to NASCAR, but one thought to give to them if I were, first off, if I could fix their problem, I would gladly fly down to Florida and talk to somebody. But one thought is, if you're identified as a weekly gonna run for the full season, even if you don't have the charters in a guaranteed spot, if you don't qualify, you get more money, even though you didn't qualify, than somebody that qualified and finished last. The money could still be dispersed. I'm not a big fan of you are guaranteed a spot for this exact reason. And I hate to pick on RWR, but because we don't see as many starting parks, but that's what you eliminate. You eliminate somebody that's just like, all I got to do is show up because I am guaranteed to get 36th place money, the starting money. That's what I was really not in favor of. And that was in place prior to, because they had the top 35 in points rule. But that you could work your way into. If you were running better than the team in front of you, you eventually took over 35th, 34th spot, and they were forced out and now in the position of got to qualify. So at least there was a chance. With the charter system, you cannot work your way into it unless NASCAR takes the charter away. And they had a rule for it. They just didn't enforce it. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Sharon.
Yeah, it's just a slippery slope. And there, whatever they come up with, to address some of these situations, it's probably going to end up with more unintended consequences. And that's why NASCAR is ever evolving. You can't anticipate everything that's going to happen as a result. And so again, I'm not envious of being in NASCAR's position. They have smart people within their organization that will figure this out. And, I hate to see it play out in a court system, but I understand why it is too. So we just have to wait it out, see how it plays out. Again, play the waiting game, get all the facts, see how it plays out, and then we'll kind of move on from there. But how NASCAR responds is going to be where it gets real interesting.
And
NASCAR had not approved them not losing their charter, and I wish they had let that play out the way they set up the rules to be. And we would have seen something completely different here, I think.
Well, and honestly, I want to say it goes back as far as even Richard Petty Motorsports was one of them that I think was changing names and whatnot in the beginning of it to avoid that situation. They were the ones leasing out their charters to get somebody else a team. The first year that the Wood brothers came back running full-time was one of them that took that charter on a lease, a 1-year lease, and then gave it back and had gotten up in, I want to say, like in the 12 to 15 point range. And I don't blame the team that did that, and I don't remember what team it was. So, it benefits them too, because the money earned then the next year is based off of where they finished the prior year. So the next year they were able to, and we saw some teams that built their organization off of that. So there again, that was a good thing. However, we're seeing some of the negative to it. And even that of me being against.
Jay? Okay, it looks like Jerry has frozen up. He may have to go out and come back in. We know it happens occasionally. So, Jay?
Well, I popped back up.
Okay, there you go.
I can hear you. Back on. We seem to have lost the connection there.
Can you hear me?
I don't know if we're still live or not, so I'm going to keep talking. But going back to of that, being against the charter system and even thinking of reasons this might not work, a lawsuit of a monopoly was not one of them I saw coming. And clearly NASCAR did not, or they wouldn't have allowed it to open themselves up to that.
Jay,
all right, I think we're both back now. We're
okay.
Good? Yeah, I hear you. We both went out. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, I didn't even know I went out.
But yeah, that one, both my screens went blank. But I was just saying, like I said, even as I thought about what I didn't like about the charter system and what could go wrong, I didn't see the lawsuit coming, and I'm sure NASCAR didn't say, "Oh, if we do this, we might get sued for a monopoly or something," or they wouldn't have agreed to it to begin with. So it's unfortunate. We'll see what comes out of it, and I think you're right. One way or another, things are going to change, obviously, when
Yeah.
this is all said and done.
Yeah, you can see that coming. Okay, so are we ready to move on then?
Yeah, it's another one. Might get myself in a little bit of trouble, but it tied into the following. I meant to catch it and do it after the Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, but I heard some fans call in to, I think it was when I was listening to Dave Moody, Sirius XM Speedway, but throughout the day, apparently had been a lot of talk about late race restarts, that fans who wanted green, white, checkered finishes now all of a sudden want to change that because their driver didn't win the race. I mean, I don't know how else to look at it, but that they're saying if within the last 5 laps, this was one of the ones I heard today, if a caution comes out within the last 5 laps, teams shouldn't be allowed to pit and get fresh tires and have an advantage, or somebody that was up front lose the front spot because of a pit road issue. I'm gonna let you go first, Sharon, and think about how I want to say what I'm thinking without saying what I'm thinking.
Okay, there's a reason why we have the restarts to begin with. And, fans wanted to see the race end in a green flag condition. And so NASCAR came up with these restarts that put us into overtime and everything. But these drivers are racing. They're trying to manage their tires to get to the end of the race. But, you're taking a lot of competitors out of the race if they cannot go and pit. If it goes into overtime. I just think that we got to let it play out the way it is. That's my initial thought, but I'm kind of curious to hear what you're saying, Jay, because you might have a different perspective on this that could change my mind on this.
No, I'm on that side of it of why would you possibly not allow something that's in play the entire rest of the race? And I'm trying to think back to how Dave Moody, I'm always impressed with him he says, hey, that's just not smart, without being disrespectful about it. Again, and I'm trying to think of in football, if you're going to call pass interference or something, you can't not call it in the fourth quarter just because the game's now on the line, of this. If a caution comes out within 5 laps or whatever, you're going to try and set it at 5 to 10 laps or whatever. Pitting is an option anytime the caution comes out. I know in past ones they said, the caution come out, getting restarted instead of running that extra lap and choosing to pit and some top off and then the other guys run out. They have that same option. They make that choice. That is part of the strategy. Racing involves strategy. The tires, you talk about that. In a track like Darlington, clearly everybody was going to pit. Somebody said that of why didn't so-and-so stay out? Because they were going to get run the schmuck. So that clearly wasn't even we got some serious connection problems now. Why is that?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah, I hear you, but we blinked out again.
Yeah, you blinked out. I don't think I did.
Okay. Well, on mine it did, but.
Okay. Are you having storms there, Jay?
I don't know, but I did lose my internet, and I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. Whoops.
Okay, so So yeah, that's kind of the way I was kind of going with that too, Jay. Are you still there? Okay, Jay might have some internet connection problems there, so we'll let him work on that. But I'm kind of thinking along the same lines here. I can hear you, Jay, even though your thing is frozen.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyway, I'm just thinking that I agree with Jay. You can't change the rules for how the football game plays out just because they're on the 1 yard line about to make a touchdown. But I just can't see telling drivers that you cannot pit at the end of the race to get fresher tires, especially at a track like Darlington. Now, Ryan Blaney had that race won. You got to feel for him. And I understand Ryan Blaney fans being upset that he had such a good lead and there was a caution. And so they had to put the caution out at that point. So it really is unfortunate. I feel bad for Ryan Blaney. I like Ryan Blaney. I want him to win a race, but it's the way it played out. And unfortunately, with that caution, it allowed people to go in and change their tires. Everybody had the option to do that. So everybody was on an equal footing from that perspective, that everybody had that option to go out and pit and get fresher tires. What's unfortunate in this particular case, and it's just part of the competition, is you had Denny Hamlin's team that they had a lightning fast pit stop, and they're hitting all their marks. And Ryan Blaney's team, unfortunately, is not hitting all their marks in the pit crew. So it was to Ryan Blaney's disadvantage for that caution to come out, but it was to Denny Hamlin's advantage. We talked about it earlier when we're talking about how Denny Hamlin is hitting all the marks with the pit crew. With everything about that team, they're hitting all their marks right now. That's a growth opportunity, of course, for Ryan Blaney and his pit crew. They are losing the mark, and it's helping Ryan Blaney lose the race. So it's unfortunate, but I don't think NASCAR has to change their rules to help Ryan Blaney win that race, or any competitor for that matter. So looking at the bigger picture, I don't think they need to change the restart rules at the end of a race. Jay, are you still there?
Yeah, I put my hopefully put the logo up there. I got audio. For some reason, I can't get video back.
Okay, well, what I see is your photo from the video cam, but it's not your avatar. It's your video cam. I see.
Oh, okay.
But you're not moving.
Okay. Well, as long as we got audio, I guess we'll just go with that for now, because I can't seem to get that to come back. But I do have the audio, so we'll roll with that. Yeah, Dave Moody always likes to ask of, why are you trying to make it easier? This is a hard sport. It's supposed to be tough and challenging when it comes to that. Second off, it is a team sport. I mean, you talk about it. That's why these guys train these pit crews. And I gave the stats earlier that I heard on the radio today. Overall through the race, Ryan Blaney lost 19 spots on pit road and pit stops, 3 of them coming on that final pit stop. That's part of it. If you want to be a championship contending and win the championship, it's going to take all parts. Like you said, Sharon, you got to be firing on all 8 cylinders, have a fast car from when you unload through practice, make the right changes, all of it, so that's where it's like, why would you want NASCAR? I liked how you put it. It's not NASCAR's job to make sure Ryan Blaney wins a race.
Exactly.
We have enough of those conspiracy theories of NASCAR trying to pick and choose and dictate who wins. I don't buy into that either. And this was clear. I mean, did Ryan Blaney at that particular moment have that race won? Yeah, I believe so. But turn it around early. And this is where, if I were to engage with these fans that are saying things like this, well, Kyle Larson or Bubba Wallace gave this race to so-and-so. Well, wait a minute. Brad Keselowski is the one that spun out 30 or 40 laps prior that flipped the script for a lot of these teams to even be up front and have a shot at it. So why are we not pointing the finger at him and him bringing – that's part of racing, So, yeah, it's not NASCAR's job to do any of that. Their job is, if a car is around and the caution is needed, they throw it. They open pit road. If you choose to pit, that's your decision, your choice. Now, other tracks and scenarios, somebody might try and stay out. And we've seen that, run on a little bit older tires. Darlington, not one of them. If I think it got brought up and they said, well, they could have tried to stay out and, get a top 2 or 3 finish. No, you were going to end up probably 15th if you were lucky.
Exactly. Darlington is a very abrasive racetrack for those fans who might not know that. And it eats up tires. So if you get a chance to go in and get your tires changed, drivers are going to do that. And like you say, it's just... You don't want to make this sport easier. It's intended to be harder. You're expecting teams to work on their organizations to be better. And I know they all are working on their teams to be better. It's still early in the season. You got to give them a chance to work out the kinks and get things. But everybody has the same situation. Everybody has to work with their pit crew. They have to work with their spotter, the crew chief, the car chief, the tire specialist. They're all contributing to the success of any given team on the track. Some are going to be better than others. Some are going to be on a learning curve. And maybe that's the case with Ryan Blaney this year. Maybe that's why Ford is kind of having the challenges that they're having, because it's not just Ryan Blaney, it's Joey Logano. They get up there, they lead these laps, and they're not finishing it out. So they have something to work on within their organization to get better at. And you might be a fan of those drivers. You have to give their teams that chance to work out their kinks and to get better. And trust me, they will. These things come in waves. They might have had a veteran team on their pit crew last year, and that veteran team, maybe a lot of their key players left, and now they're working with new people that need to grow and develop. So it's just part of what happens in the sport. And maybe it's Ryan Blaney's team this year. It might be somebody else's team. It might be William Byron's team next year. So it's just the way this sport is. And changing the restart rules at the end of the race isn't going to change any of that.
Yeah, the only scenario I see of even possibly talking about changing it was that NASCAR has unlimited green-white checkered as long as they haven't taken the white flag. And people wanted to point to Nashville last year where I think there were 5 restarts. Did I agree that got out of hand? Yes. Do I think they need to change the rule? No. It's happened once out of how many times since they've implemented this green-white checkered. Don't do that knee-jerk reaction type situation and change something that doesn't really need to be changed. Did it happen one time? Yeah. Was it a good thing? No. But it hasn't happened again since. So why would they have needed to change it? And this is one of those two. Unfortunate. I feel bad for Ryan Blaney without a doubt. But we've all seen drivers, our favorite drivers, our least favorite drivers win a race because of it, or our favorite drivers not win because of it. Like you said, it goes in cycles. If you're running up front, you're going to be in position one day to get the win because of it. sometimes you're going to be on the other end of it.
And think about it, poor Ryan Blaney to lose 19 spots on pit road and still be up there leading at the end of that race tells you what an incredible driver he is. So celebrate those kinds of things because he really did a good job. And we talked about drivers who can get a lot out of a little. And even in spite of those challenges, he was there contending. So anything more that we need to say here, Jay?
No, I'm good. Like I said, it's one of those that goes back to, I don't know that the fans really even know what they want or are asking for and change their mind on a weekly basis, if not more. Oh,
it happens all the time. Okay, before we go, I do want to give a little tribute to Shige Hattori. We had some bad news over the weekend that he was involved in an accident that took his life. And I had an honor of a meeting with Shige Hattori in 2019. It was July of 2019 at Iowa Speedway. And I did a feature on him and his team. And I put that out on both Facebook and Twitter. So take a look at my timeline and you can see that article. He was an amazing person. And I've seen a lot of people echo that sentiment. And I just felt bad when I heard that news because he was such an amazing, positive person all the time. And when we talked to him about the possibility of doing the feature, he welcomed it. And he was doing some great things with bringing over pit crew members from Japan to the Technical Institute and in NASCAR and go through some training, and then had them, after going through that training, had them do live pit stops with one of his teams. And in this case, it was Max McLaughlin at the time racing in the Xfinity Series. And he had his all Japanese pit crew working that particular weekend. And we were able to do the interview there. It was an amazing conversation with him. He was very, very positive, and I really thought it was inspirational what he was doing with the all Japanese pit crew and for Max McLaughlin and for that organization. And it not only gave them a chance to learn and grow. It helped his team learn and grow as well because they were working with those members and everything. So that was a really good experience for me. But Shige Hattori will be missed within the garage and within this sport. He was an amazing person. And I was just lucky enough to get an opportunity to meet him and talk with him. Jay?
Yeah, and I thank you for that same opportunity. I know you did the sit-down interview with him, but just to be around him, I did an interview with Max McLaughlin. But as you were talking about that, I'm going to have to look and see. I remember taking that picture with the pit crew along that car with the, I want to say it's NTT, or was it NIT? The training center.
The NASCAR training center, yeah. The Universal Technical Institute, I think, is what it was.
Okay, UTI, yeah. I remember that. And I do remember, and at that time, I knew a few Japanese words. I couldn't have any kind of lengthy discussion with any of them, but I did throw out a few words and got to then talk with the crew members and talked about that the time I spent in Okinawa. So was really rewarding. I know the truck series are off for a little bit. My hope is that NASCAR puts together some type of package honoring that team. They won the Truck Series championship with Brett Moffitt. Yes. So that's my hope is that something does get put together. NASCAR is normally really good about putting packages like that together. But yeah, very unfortunate situation.
If you look at social media, there are a ton of people paying tribute to Shige Hattori.
Yeah, that's what I said when I first started seeing that this morning. I hadn't even heard about the accident. We talked about that, of why that may have taken the delay. There's a lot of different possibilities, and you got to respect the family and what happened. But it certainly was caught me off guard this morning when I started seeing some things, and that was one of those I wanted to verify what was true before I even did or said anything.
Yes. Well, I did see the police report. They put that up on social media. And it's very sad. The other driver, by the way, was hospitalized with injuries, but it looks like that person's going to pull through. It's just a sad situation. You hate to see this happen to anyone. But I'm just, it's just sad, anytime you lose someone from the community, you go through a grieving process, and that's what's happening in NASCAR right now for Shige Hattori.
Well, and like you said, especially somebody that really truly was just giving to the sport, with the team, with the training, and taking them back to Japan. Then I know a lot of them went to work with, I want to say Formula One, but that's not right. I'm trying to think of the series they run over there, but again, that cross promotion, the opportunity for them to come and be a part of NASCAR here in the States, and then take that back over, was just a great opportunity. And that's the type of guy Hattori was, providing that. Like I said, just an absolute giver. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt. And a smile on his face all the time. And I will tell you, I had put out that request, and usually you wait for a PR person to get back to you. And I was sitting in the media center, and Shige Hattori came in looking for me to let me know that he had made some arrangements for photographs and different things. So just really amazing that he came to talk to me himself.
Yeah, I remember that, and you're right. Always so gracious and so grateful and thankful, and that's why he was trying to pass on to other people. Is he talked about the opportunities he got and was given, and he wanted to pass that forward.
Yes, he did. And he did a great job of doing that. I found his story very inspirational, and I hope by writing the article, it inspired other people as well, with just how giving he is as an individual. Okay, so with that, Jay, I think we might be, do you have more?
No, I think we had covered all the ones that we had listed up there. I don't see, because the bottom two we covered. So again, we covered quite a lot tonight, even just with the two of us.
Yes, we did. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close out. Jay and I earlier tonight did our reviews for the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Cup Series at Darlington, as well as for the ARCA West Series at Tucson. And included with that is the ASA Series, ASA Stars National Tour that raced at Dominion Speedway, Dominion Raceway this weekend. So all of those will be out. I think the Xfinity Series is out now. I just need to get that out on social media. I'll go ahead and edit the one for the ARCA West Series and the ASA Stars National Tour. And the Cup Series will be out first thing in the morning, probably around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So watch for that to be coming out as well. I'll probably do it between 9 and 10. So, and that's Central Time. So we'll be back for a Hot Topic Sound Off next Monday night, again at 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on Fan4Racing Radio with our live stream. So I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week, Jay. Oh, did I lose Jay? I might have lost Jay, but we have more to talk about. We'll do our previews at the end of this weekend for the races coming up at Bristol. All 3 national series will be racing at Bristol this weekend. So that should be a lot of fun as well. So take care, everybody. Enjoy your week.
Sharon.
Oh, there you are.
All right. Is my video working again now?
No, not the video. We
Okay.
just have sound.
All right. Well, okay. Just with the audio, I just wanted to share with you. I'll send you the full information. On Wednesday, I will.
Uh-oh.
Cast.
We lost you for a second. Go ahead.
All right. On Wednesday, I believe at 5 or 5:10, somewhere in there, I'll get some information to you and we'll share it around, but I'll be on BBSN's Lap to Lap NASCAR podcast. So talking about Bristol as well as what we're doing here at Fan4Racing.
All right. We'll look forward to that. And that's Wednesday, this coming Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I was saying that you and I will be back later this week to do the previews for Bristol Motor Speedway, and watch for those to be coming out. I'm going to try to do one on Thursday night, either by myself or maybe with somebody who can stand in for Jay. And then Jay and I will do the other 2 on Friday morning, but we'll get those previews out for everybody for the upcoming weekend of racing at Bristol Motor Speedway.
All right. Have a good week.
Okay, everybody, enjoy your week, and we'll see you in our preview videos. Take care now.